Good day, everyone. This is Dr. David Phelps of the Freedom Founders Mastermind Community and Dentist Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Today, I'm going to peel back the layers, peel back the onion layers, the curtains to how you can self-direct your retirement accounts. That's right, self-direct. I don't mean just putting your accounts with Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard. You can do that. Yeah, you can do that. But what if you have the opportunity to really be involved in orchestrating your financial future and deciding what you got to choose from, not just a menu of what's on there, the menu today, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. That's all fine. That works. But what if you could actually involve yourself in your investments in other types of assets, what I call alternative assets, what we do at Freedom Founders, and that this case would be like real estate. Wow. Could you really do that with a retirement account? So I've got with me today, good friend of mine, Mr. Derek Long from Quest Trust Company. Derek, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited.
Well, Derek, you and I really love to educate people because you and I both, on a personal basis, we've been doing this very thing, self-directing our own accounts. And when you realize that there's this wide open door for those who want to gain a little bit of education, which is obviously important here to understand what this means, but more importantly, what it means to them, their family, their legacy. There's so much here that you can do if you get involved with this. And I want to let people know that Quest Trust Company is a specialized custodian administrator for certain types of retirement accounts. Do you want to just give us kind of that picture? Because people are kind of wondering, well, what is this? Why do I have to go to a trust company to be able to do this? So talk a little bit about that world.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always like to use the term self-directed, right? And no matter how many times I say this, self-directed is always a marketing term. It comes down to the custodian itself. So if we think of a custodian being Quest Trust, right? We allow you to invest in very specific assets. Fidelity is the same way. Fidelity or Charles Schwab and Vanguard, they let you invest in very specific assets. So at Quest, we let you take your retirement account and invest into something that's tangible or something that you can touch, feel, see, look at. And in most cases, this is going to be some form of real estate, whether it's a rental property, a note, a fix and flip, something along those lines. And a lot of people don't realize this. They don't realize you can use those old 401ks, those IRAs, even in certain cases like those HSAs and ESA accounts, to use those funds and invest instead of the stock market, but invest into an actual real estate asset. And that's where Quest comes into play, and that's what we specialize in.
So to be able to do this, do you have to be licensed or have any particular kind of certifications? Can anybody just open up some kind of a company to do this? How does that work so that we know that there's some level of scrutiny or oversight or safety?
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of scrutiny that goes behind the scenes when you're setting up any type of trust company. So Quest, we've been around since about 2000, right? And in 2006, we went from being a franchise custodian. These are kind of the steps you have to take. But we were a franchise of a company called Intrust. And Intrust was a jack of all trades type company. And they did public assets and private assets and all this other stuff, but they allowed us to be a franchise to get our foot in the door. After that, we did become our own IRA custodian, which means that we get regulated very strictly by a third-party company that's regulated by the IRS. Eventually, in 2018, we became so large the IRS started to oversee us directly. And that's when we became our own trust company. The biggest advantage to this, to any clients when you're looking across the board, is when you work with an IRA custodian, they don't follow the same rules and regulations that a trust company has to follow. All of your accounts here are fully FDIC insured. We're regulated directly, not only by the Texas Banking Division, but the IRS as well. In addition, we do get audited 5 times a year. So there's a lot of audits that happen at a custodian like ours that keep our clients safe and keep them in line and make sure everyone's following the right rules and regulations. So you always want to be working with some sort of trust company. Not that a custodian is bad, that's where we started. Right. But we really wanted to get to that trust custodian aspect because we know there's better safeties put in place for the client himself.
So just full disclosure, I have been a client of Quest back when you were a franchisee with Intrust, and so I have watched the iterations over the years, and yes, compliance regulation as any company or business scales up, becomes bigger, more of you're going to be in a landscape where there's more scrutiny. So that's hard. But when you get that big, then it's good for us, the clients, because I recognize the level of quality that comes from Quest when I am directing an investment through one of my Quest IRA accounts into something I want to go into. We'll talk about how that works. But if I want to, as you said, invest into a note a note receivable secured by real estate, I do a lot of that, or into a private equity company that also has real estate as its collateral. I do that through Quest, and there are certain steps we take and dot I's, cross T's to make sure that you're compliant in helping us stay compliant, because the whole game here is this is under the auspices of the IRS code, right? The IRS code allows us to do this, but we have to, as any government program allows, we have to follow the rules. So at Quest, what you do is you allow us to have our accounts there. We'll talk about how people can move accounts and which accounts, that kind of thing. But once you have an account or maybe several accounts, different types of IRA retirement accounts with Quest, then you have the ability to choose those investments, and learning what to invest in, of course, is another step. But something else that Quest does very well is tons of education. So now I've got my money, in accounts. Oh my gosh, what do I do with it? Well, you don't want to just let it sit there in cash, not for very long anyway, maybe for a while, but not very long. So you do a lot of great education. Of course, we do that at Freedom Founders, and there's certainly lots of other organizations, associations that help people do this, but you still have to go through a custodian like Quest, a good trust company, to make this happen.
Yep. That's correct. And the biggest difference that comes from a company like Quest versus, let's say, a Charles Schwab, is Charles Schwab's job really is to sell you an investment, right? They sell you the annuity or the mutual fund or the CD, right? You work with a broker who's trying to sell you very specific stocks, Fortune 500 ones typically, right? And this is normal. Quest, we don't sell any investments. You're right. I have 0 investments here for you. You need to find it yourself. So the best thing I can do is bring in people and work with groups like the Freedom Founders and educate them the best way I can to figure out what investments meet their needs. If I'm someone that's really familiar with rental properties, why am I going to use my 401k invest in stocks? Why don't I use that 401k and buy rental properties with it? If I'm someone who really likes notes, man, quit using your 401k in the stock market, use your 401k and let's get some notes in there. And that's the key. And so we try our best to work with everyone from a real estate standpoint to figure out what meets their criteria.
So the key here is, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to take some of my retirement accounts and move them so I can self-direct, then I've got to put myself in some position. I've got to get educated, and I need to be within some network, or maybe I am actually boots on the ground involved in real estate. There's rules against investing in your own stuff. But what I'm saying is, when you're involved in a real estate community or some community that's showing you, giving you avenues to make investments in the types of real estate collateral that you might become educated about, that's going to be one of the keys, the education and access, right?
That's correct. That's perfect, man. And that's what we're here to help out with, right? And we love to see people work with groups like the Freedom Founders, because it's a perfect thing, right? We're both here to provide education, help, people, hey, look, does this investment make sense? I mean, let's see what it looks like inside the IRA, outside of the IRA, et cetera. So
Derek, most people who have retirement accounts understand, the primary benefit of retirement accounts, and chiefly it's going to be tax deferral and tax-free based on the type of account you're utilizing. That's why people do it. So in this case, we've got the same benefits whether you have your accounts with a money manager that's handling it through what I call Wall Street financial products. Mm-hmm. Same benefits. In this case, we just get to choose to go into alternatives, which was mostly for us is real estate. There's a lot of other advantages to real estate. We're not going to go down those rabbit holes, because we could spend a couple of days in a seminar to talk about that. So we're going to at least assume some prior knowledge in real estate. Or if you're listening and you're going, what are these guys talking about? I just recommend you either jump into Freedom Founders website or go to Quest Trust Company, trust.com, right? QuestTrust.com, which is, there's tons of information there. So get educated. So start there. But we can have these benefits. Let's kind of run through some of the accounts again for people that just are knowledgeable. What kind of accounts can people self-direct through Quest, Derek?
So there's 7 different types of accounts, and the first 2 are probably the most popular. That's the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. The traditional IRA we see the most is probably about 80% of our accounts, but this is because your old 401ks, pension plans, 403bs, TSPs, all of these will roll into a traditional IRA. The big sexy account that everyone wants is that Roth IRA. Remember, the Roth IRA is the one that grows completely, truly tax-free, as long as you can wait 5 tax years and be of the appropriate age. So the Roth IRA is where everyone wants to get, and we do education on this, but more often than not, we see people still leverage the traditional IRA because that's where all their money's already sitting. In addition, with a lot of dentists and doctor practices and stuff, we see a lot of self-employed accounts. These are things like the SEP IRA, the Simple IRA, or the really, really powerful solo 401k. So you can self-direct these as well into real estate style assets through us. And we have education in each one of these areas because they are a little bit more complicated only due to the contribution limits. The last accounts that we typically see are what I like to call specialty accounts. These are your health savings account and an education account for your kids, or also known as a Coverdell or ESA. These two, believe it or not, are the most powerful accounts in your arsenal that almost no one leverages and utilizes. I can do a note in my HSA, have all the earnings come back completely tax-free, and pull it out today, no matter what my age is, tax-free, as long as it's for a medical expense, right? Now, when I say medical expense, people always assume it's just the doctor, but no, medical expenses is anything that keeps me healthy. Tylenol, hand sanitizer, Kleenex, glasses, LASIK. I paid for LASIK for myself, right? Anything like that, including doctor's visits. So leveraging an HSA or an education account, which is the same thing, it just allows it to be for educational purposes, are super, super powerful because they avoid taxes. Right. In many cases, you get tax deductions and you can spend the money today versus the IRAs. I got to wait until I'm 59 and a half.
Right.
So,
yeah, really good. So you mentioned the solo 401k, which basically amounts to a 401k that a solo owner with no employees, other than it could be a spouse, I suppose, or maybe other family members, but outside of that. So that may be somewhat limited, but if you're listening to this and you are that small business entrepreneur that doesn't have outside employees, solo 401k is something, again, you ought to go to Quest Trust and read about that, because it's a real opportunity for you. For a lot of our professional practice owners, business owners, Derek, that come to Freedom Founders, they have employees, and many of them, based on recommendations from their CPAs, have wisely fired up, meaning opened up office employer-employee 401k programs, and they've been stashing or contributing. What's the difference, right? Stashing away money for that, and putting. But again, those are almost always have to be managed in the financial product world, the Wall Street world. And what's interesting, and I want people who are listening to this that are small business owners, and you have that 401k, and you're thinking, yeah, but I've already checked, and when I go to my money manager who administers that 401k for us, he or she says, no, you can't do real estate, and we got this menu over here, but no, I'm sorry, you can't do real estate. So I'm not giving advice here, but what I'm telling people is that a lot of our members make the decision to terminate their office 401k, in which case their money, the employer's money, and the employee's money gets rolled over to their individual traditional IRA accounts, where then everybody can do their own thing. And that gives everybody in that case the opportunity, if they want to self-direct, they can move those accounts to Quest, or they can move them to Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, whatever they want to do, but they don't lose the tax deferral mechanism. And I tell the business owners, you can still make contributions, indirectly, so your employees have a place to still contribute to their own IRAs. The whole point in this case, is to allow each individual to self-direct if they so desire. Yep. And so we've had a lot of members that have terminated those plans, moved their money to a traditional, and then moved it to Quest, and now they are investing in alternatives and really enjoying that opportunity, because they're seeing so much more growth because of their ability to I call it 1 degree of separation from your money. By doing it through people that you get to meet, through organizations, through networking, you get to really know where your money is. On Wall Street, not so much. You're really separated by a long shot. You're reading reports, maybe getting advice, but from third parties. But here you really get a chance to dial it up.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. I actually was just last week working with a Freedom founder who had 401ks for his company, and we changed the 401k to a simple IRA, which is very close, right? Because both the employer and employee can still contribute to it. And now they were able to self-direct it Now, this is very rare. We don't see usually a lot of employees wanting to self-direct their own accounts. But if they would like to, it's nice to know that that's an option, that we can move the 401ks to a simple IRA that can be self-directed. The specific dentist I was working with had a really small staff, and he's actually getting ready to sell his company. But when I say small staff, we're talking, I think it was 4 or 5 people. So it was a smaller practice, but it made sense for him.
Yeah, the nice thing is there are options. There are options to take a look at your current situation, and if you want to see what the opportunities look like. Again, Derek's a great guy at Quest. Derek Long here that I'm speaking with is a great guy to talk to because he's been through all this, and you actually are certified IRA services professional. Did I get that right? CISP?
Yep, I have a CISP license, which comes from the American Banking Association. It's a really fancy way of saying that I can even be an IRS auditor if I wanted to.
Okay, very good. Let's go back for a second to what you mentioned. The big account that people really love is the Roth, because you said it's truly tax free. You're deferring in 5 years, and age 59 and a half, then you can start taking distributions out completely tax free. But all the while you're growing that account without any concern about taxes. And my personal feeling, Derek, is that we're going to see higher taxes in the future. So goodness gracious, if you can have a vehicle like a Roth or an HSA, we'll do the same thing. Boy, if you learn how to manage that and create profits within that construct, what a winner. So here's the problem I hear, and I know you hear it all the time too. Okay, geez, sounds great, but I just read, or my CPA told me that there's a limitation on my adjusted gross income. If I or my spouse and I, if we earn too much money in a single year, we cannot make a contribution to a Roth IRA. So sounds like we're dead in the water. Is that true, or is there another way to make that happen?
When I hear this, I always say that your CPA is being lazy. Okay, and it sounds bad to put it that way, but that is not the case at all. Everyone out there qualifies for a Roth IRA. And if you make too much money to make a direct contribution, you just have to take an extra step. What we do is we take a contribution, we put it in a traditional IRA instead. There is no income limit for a traditional IRA. Then you do a conversion of the money you just contributed. Now, when you do this conversion, there is no limit to how much you can convert. So you're still indirectly putting money in a Roth IRA. So we convert it over to the Roth. Now, what people miss is they go, well, wait, when I do that conversion, don't I get a 1099? You do. So to prevent from repaying the taxes on this, you do have to fill out an additional tax form called an 8606. It's very basic. All it says is I put money in an IRA. I did not take a tax deduction on it. It's after tax money. So when I convert it, I don't owe taxes on it. And that's it. Notice, I understand that you're taking an extra step, right? Your CPA is just being lazy. They don't want to help you with the 8606, and they don't want to walk you through that you are able to do this conversion. And you can do this anywhere. It doesn't have to be at Quest. This can be at wherever you're currently banking with. So.
And then if you already have a traditional IRA that you've built up over the years, or you're maybe going to do that rollover of an existing pension 401k into a traditional, now you can also take any amount of that traditional IRA and convert it. In this case, if you've taken the deduction, which you probably have in those, then you're going to pay a tax on that conversion, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So if we do a conversion of any additional funds outside of what I just made as a contribution in our example, those conversions amounts will be added to my modified adjusted gross income. All right. So I always tell people, before you do a conversion, you don't have to do the full account. Find your investment first. If you're working with a company like Quest, it takes us about 30 seconds to actually do the conversion. Okay. So find your investment. How much do I need? Oh, I need 50,000. Well, I'm going to convert 50,000. I'm not going to convert 500. And that's very normal. And that's usually what we see.
So I can convert it as the opportunities come before me. I can take chunks at a time and convert.
That's correct. And that's usually one of the best options, because an easier way to, mitigate how much you're going to have to pay in taxes. I mean, is it still going to be a tax hit? Absolutely. But usually it's going to make the most sense to do this because you get the tax-free growth.
There's a kind of alliteration that we use is, do you want to pay tax on the acorn, the small seed, or would you rather pay tax on the grown oak tree? Mm-hmm. And so if you pay tax today, yeah, there's a bite, it hurts, but now you're growing that seed, and as it grows over time to become that oak tree, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, whatever your time frame is, the tax has already been paid. You're done. So it's something you can look at with your financial advisor, your CPA, but I think there's potentially a play there for a lot of people if they just look at it, specifically what their situation is.
Yeah, and not only that, I was on the phone this morning, literally an hour before this podcast, right? And with a financial advisor who was telling his client that he'll be in a lower tax bracket when he gets older. So it doesn't make sense to do that. And I was like, man, if you're in a lower tax bracket as you get older, you didn't save for retirement the right way.
No.
And any tax deferred account, whether it's a traditional IRA, 401k, pension plan, when you hit the age of 72, the IRS is going to force you to pull this money out and start to pay taxes on it. Hypothetically, if I had $1 million in there, right, that's going to be distributed between 72 and when my life expectancy is. And as of right now, that comes out to about 80 grand a year. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that means assuming that's the only money I live off. I have no other investments, no other income, nothing. I'm living off that $80,000 a year. That is my smallest tax bracket for the rest of my life, which is 20%. Now, do you really think you can live off $1 million for the rest of your life? Probably not anymore. So think if you just made that to 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. As this account grows in value, that R&D gets larger. If you're saving and you're doing investments the right way, you should be in a higher tax bracket, which is where the Roth makes sense. This will help decrease that income.
Exactly. Very good. So something that you and I both like to do in our self-directed IRA accounts is, and we've alluded to it earlier, Derek, is to have our accounts be lenders, lend money to other operators, borrowers who are borrowing, and the loan that they're making that we are funding from our IRA accounts is secured by some kind of real estate.
Yep, that's correct.
What a lot of people don't even realize that you can do that, and I tell people it's like being the bank. What does your bank do? Well, your bank, people make deposits to the bank, savings or CDs or what have you, and the bank, lends that money back out. And the bank, when they make that loan, well, it's an asset to the bank. It's a liability to the borrower. We usually think that we're always on the liability side. Well, you don't have to be. You can be on the asset side with your bank, called your self-directed IRA account, and you can now make loans like a bank does. There's a lot of benefits to that. Do you want to just run down some of the things that you like about being a lender from your IRA accounts, Derek?
Absolutely, man. So prior to ever doing self-directed, if we think of someone's average retirement account, we don't look at it on a daily basis, monthly basis, maybe even a yearly basis, right? You shovel money in, and I hope it goes up in value. Well, when I think of what I'm doing as a note, notes are very similar. After I do the initial loan, I do nothing. I sit back and I collect a check from a borrower on a consistent basis. In addition, usually the borrower is going to have a better interest rate than you'd ever get in a mutual fund or annuity or a CD. Lastly, you nailed it on the head with it's secured, right? I can go ahead and request, give me a lien to that property. If you don't pay me back, I'm keeping the house, And most recent, I actually just funded a loan myself for my IRA in November. I lent $35,000, which isn't very much, at 12% for a first lien position on a $118,000 property. Like, man, I hope they don't pay me back. That's a heck of a deal. And it's very normal. You see these all the time with fix and flippers and renters, And for those of you out there who are like, man, I don't know if I know what I'm looking at from notes aspects. There's companies that will actually help you do this for free. Companies like Investor Loan Source with Tom Berry or Notes Direct with Eddie Speed. These guys will sell you a note, right, that they've already put forth their own money and own due diligence from. So I love using my IRA because it's a great way to be passive. I don't do anything. I literally sit back and collect a check, which also allows me to still educate individuals and do events like this and work even a full-time job. I'm not dealing with tenants. I'm not dealing with toilets. I'm literally able to lend money secured. Remember, in the stock market, I'm not really that secured.
Right.
Get an above average interest rate, and I can even go see what my money is doing. I can go touch the asset, feel it, see it, look at it. It's right there. And I think that's really unique. And once you get into this habit, it's addicting, actually.
It is. You want to find the next deal, the next opportunity. It's fun to know, as you said, where your money's going. It's helping somebody else put together a deal, a rehab or renovation of some kind on a property in, their area, and you get, and I always get from them, I'm sure you do, I get pictures. Part of the due diligence, I want before and after pictures and pictures during the rehab. So when my IRA account sends out draws, when they request a draw for their certain stage, I'll get videos. Back, and they're doing walkthroughs. Okay, here's where we are. Here's, and these are things that you can learn as a lender, things that you'll want to learn. But as you said, find people that have already done it, piggyback on their deals, or piggyback on stuff they've already put together, and you'll start learning how to do this. But there's no better way, I think, to get started. I tell people in real estate, if you want to get started, just be a lender. Carry back notes. Hold notes in your portfolio, because you really can learn a lot of things without getting in the weeds of the tenants and the ownership aspects, which have their own benefits. So at some point, some balance between the two can be good. Derek, let's take a few minutes. Again, we can't do a deep dive here, but why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of rules, because again, this is IRS promulgated to allow us to have these retirement accounts because of the benefits. There are certain rules that we have to abide by. And I know you've got a lot more information on the website, but what would you tell people in general that they need to start to be aware of when they're using it, when they're self-directing their accounts?
Yeah. So the first thing to understand is your IRA's legal definition by the IRS is a tax exempt entity. Okay, meaning truly tax exempt. Any deals you do, any investment, doesn't matter what it is, it's tax exempt. So if the IRS is going to give us a tool or an entity that is truly tax exempt, that is easy and quick to set up, they're going to put some strict regulations in there. Meaning I can't use my IRA and lend me money, right? Okay, I guess that makes sense, right? I can't use a tax exempt entity and then lend me money, because it's the same thing as a distribution. The IRS is not that dumb. In addition, I can't buy a house and go live in it. If I'm going to use my IRA, it has to be for a real investment. I can't say, well, I live in this house and use my IRA and that's my investment. No, that's a homestead. But these rules don't just apply to yourself. It also applies to anyone that potentially inherits your wealth. So your spouse, your parents, and your kids, right? So know that when you're using one of these tax exempt entities, being an IRA, right, it has to be for a real investment purpose. You can't lend yourself money or your LLC money, right? You can't buy yourself a house or your kids a house and have them live in it and pay rent. It doesn't work that way. It has to be for what I like to call a true or real investment. And that's the best, quick, short way to go about it. Obviously, like you said, we can dive into this all day long, because there's 100 different types of examples, and people come up with some really weird things. What if I set up an LLC and a trust and and they go through? Hey man, it's still the same thing. Your IRA can't lend you money. Your IRA can't buy yourself a house. So same for spouse, parents, and kids, to keep it easy. So,
and there's really no reason you have to get involved in any of those prohibited transactions or with disqualified people. There's no reason to have to do that when you are around, or you create, or you involve yourself in a network of what we like to call financial friends. People that also are wanting to utilize their self-directed accounts, so you can be arm's length and not get into those disqualified parties and self-dealing and the things like that that would cross the line. So that's one of the things that with Quest, you can't guarantee that you're doing that due diligence for every customer, but you are definitely, your team is watching, the transactions, and there's questions that we have to answer just to help guide us to make sure we're not crossing lines, even inadvertently.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what we're here for. I joke with people, I get to charge you a fee. You know that? I get to charge you $125 to buy a house or do a loan or whatever it is. Get your money's worth. Ask me the questions, bring it on to me, right? Let me know how I can help. I can let you know if it's going to be prohibited or not to the best of my ability. Sometimes there's things that's really gray and really in the weeds, and I'll let you know that, and that's what you're looking for, right? I always tell people, if someone's going to charge you a fee, get your money's worth.
That's right.
Leverage us, utilize me to get this done.
Exactly. Well, Derek Long, it's always a pleasure, sir. You bring so much value to all of the people you work with. Certainly the Freedom Founders, our folks love you. They love Quest and the magnanimous changes they're making in their financial future, because they've learned how to self-direct these assets in their retirement accounts. Really a great thing to be able to do. If people wanted to get in touch with you, I gave the website questtrust.com, but specifically, people that like to contact you because they've got some questions from our discussion today, and they want to talk about, could I move some accounts, and what would that look like, and what's involved, how best to contact and get a hold of you or someone else on the team that would help them.
So the first thing is, I always tell people, Quest uses a non-automated line. So call me anytime you want. It's 281-492-3434, and that's not automated. So 281-492-3434. Or if you want to send us an email, use IRA specialist, that's with an S, at questtrust.com. It's one of the best emails that comes to myself, and we have 18 other IRA specialists just in case maybe I'm out of the office or something. But if you're going to email IRA specialist at questtrust.com, just ask for myself directly, and I'll be there to make sure you're well taken care of and answer any questions that you may have.
Perfect. All right. That's Derek Long, Quest Trust Company. Derek, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you having us on. We love you guys. So thank you again.